morning to everybody that's able to join me this morning. I know that for a lot of people, you're covered with snow right now, which is why I'm at home at the moment. But wherever you are, wherever you happen to be, I know that some people are dealing with a lot of ice and not just snow. And so I'm keeping everybody in my prayers that people will be safe and sound and we'll be able to see you again. Let me also mention too that I am, of course, at home due to the weather, and I'm going to try to get this. Sometimes my reception isn't real good and consistent at home, and so if there does end up, if it really starts breaking up or it doesn't work, then I may close it out and try to finish it or do it again when I could go to a better place. So. But we're going to give it our best shot here, and I do invite you, if you're interested in looking along a little bit, we've been following, of course, the story of the Exodus, and we're in the book of Exodus, chapter 10, verse 21. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand toward heaven, so that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, a darkness that can be felt." So Moses stretched out his hand toward heaven, and there was dense darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. People could not see one another, and for 3 days they could not move from where they were. But all the Israelites had light where they lived. Okay, this is, of course, in many ways, the way the story is being told. This is a confrontation between Moses and Pharaoh. Think about it for a moment. If somebody came to you, and your family, your organization, your business, your corporation, your state or your country, and you needed a new leader, and somebody comes along and says, "Hello, I'm here to be your new leader, but to be totally honest, I do not want the job. I've told God I didn't want the job. I am not qualified to do this job, and I've told God that I was not qualified to do this job. And he has assured me that when I take this job, things are going to get much worse before they get better." Would you take on that person as your new leader? This was Moses. And I guess I've always been impressed that even though he so desperately did not want the job and felt unqualified to do it, he still follows the will of God for his life. He has a greater calling than just tending to his own personal interests. In contrast to Moses, we have Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, to me, really personifies the individual that really sees themselves as better than everyone else. These are the people that would say, "I am so confused why it is that everybody cannot see that I'm the greatest person that has ever lived." And so in contrast to these two people, Pharaoh only wants what he wants. There is nothing else. Moses, on the other hand, everything is about the will of God. I share my wants and my desires, my needs, whatever, but ultimately everything is about the will of God. Now we have started, we started the plagues. God says, "Let my people go." They say no. And so they start out with, there's the Nile River, the water is turned to blood. There's frogs there. And if you look back over the plagues, you see that they start in the water, they move to the land, and now it is going to the sky. Um, um, we are now entering a new a level of confrontation and challenge. And think about that. In the earlier plagues, starting from the water and onto the land, you could think, this is not working out, so we'll just relocate. We'll go do this over here. We'll live over there, or we'll compensate for this. But now that is moving to the sky and all the light is gone, they cannot see. I like how he talks about how profound this darkness is. A darkness that can be felt. This idea of light and dark, of course, is a theme you see throughout the Bible. Sometimes we are able to see, we're able to understand what is going on physically around us, but even more so spiritually, the light is on, and we recognize ourselves and God for who we really are. Sadly, there are times when we may be living in darkness, where not only I cannot see to fix things, to make things okay, but I cannot even see to figure out why my life is such a terrible mess. And God brings these plagues to motivate change in people, and he does so gradually. He doesn't walk around with a big, huge stick to clobber people, but he takes it one step at a time, because at every step of the time of this process, his goal is redemption. He wants to win them over to his redeeming love. A lot of times we people don't know how to do that, and we just walk around with the biggest stick we can find, and we create more problems than we solve. So here is the darkness, and then this is chapter 10, verse 28. Pharaoh says to Moses, "Get away from me. Take care that you do not see my face again. For on the day you see my face, you shall die." Moses said, "Just as you say, I will never see your face again." This has gotten to the point now where Pharaoh threatens death to Moses if I even see your face again. This is how it has progressed, and how do you decide what you're going to do? People that study and research human behavior have learned a really interesting thing about trying to change how to change bad behavior. And one of the things that it's kind of the rule of thumb, if you're ever in a position or have the responsibility to help somebody or some people change their behavior from bad to good, is that when you change your pattern of rewards and punishments and we're going to stop reinforcing the bad behavior and look for a positive change. The rule of thumb is that behavior gets worse before it gets better. Bad behavior gets worse before it gets better. And the more you understand that, the more you can prepare yourself and be patiently knowing how these things play out. We've seen this in the life of Pharaoh. He, of course, is going to let them go. He lets them go, but it has taken a process. This was not simply a one-shot deal. In chapter 11, verse 1, the Lord said to Moses, "I will bring one more plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards, he will let you go from here. Indeed, when he lets you go, he will drive you away. Tell the people that every man is to ask his neighbor, and every woman is to ask her neighbor for objects of silver and gold. The Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, Moses himself was a man of great importance in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's officials and in the sight of the people. This is interesting to me that as life has become more and more difficult and eventually unbearable for these people, they're recognizing that God is at work in Moses' life in a way that they have never seen before. And so his reputation, what they think about him, the respect they have for Moses, not just among the Hebrew people, but for all of the Egyptians, including Pharaoh's officials. To me, this is something that I think you see in individuals that are trying to be prophetic in our world. And it demonstrates a really important thing, and I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. If you ever feel called to be prophetic, to be a prophet is somebody who openly, honestly, and clearly proclaims the will of God. Excuse me. And so in any normal group, and again, a lot of research to back this up, in any group, the person with the most influence, more often than not, is going to be the official leader. The person who is designated as the official leader will have more of a voice over what is happening than anyone else. But there are times when one little person can have more influence than the biggest leader. And this person, if they are going to have this kind of influence over the life of a group of people, the most important thing is that they have to be consistent. The official leader can sometimes go, well, I'm not really sure about this, or we're working on that. I'll have to get back to you on that. But if you are going to be that minority voice prophetically proclaiming something that is dramatically different than what everybody is believing in or pursuing, you have to be consistent 100%. If you are that prophetic voice wherever you are, and you're going along with conviction, but then all of a sudden you go, oh, wait a minute, just pause for a moment. I'm not really sure about that one point. Maybe I might want to get back to you on that. The moment a prophetic voice hesitates and backs up, will lose their voice. Moses is 100% consistent. He shares his fears with God, but in front of the people, his will is solid. He knows that he is standing for God and does precisely what he needs to do. In chapter 12, we have the institution of the Passover celebration itself, keeping in mind that all of these pages were really written down for people, for the Hebrew people and the Israelites after all of these events took place. So the people that are reading these celebrate the Passover. And herein they have instructions for observing the Passover, and why they celebrate it, and what it meant to the people when it first happened. And you know the story, of course, about how the final plague was the taking of the firstborn sons. And why would this such a frightening event, a terrifying event, profoundly affecting the lives of so many people, be something that we want to make sure we never forget, to the point that we observe this every single year? We pause in the story so that we can remind ourselves we are celebrating God's passing over the homes of the Hebrew people and not taking their. And they talk about how when they have a newborn son, they take him, they give him to the Lord, but he is purchased back. And you explain to the whole family that this represents the fact that everything that we have, everything that we are, belongs to God. But this is where all of this is described really for the first time, and why they celebrate this. And we, of course, as followers of Jesus, we don't really follow the Passover, but we do celebrate communion. And if you think about it, our communion is our version of celebrating the Passover. The Passover is their greatest event of salvation in their history. For us, the crucifixion, death, and resurrection of Jesus is our Passover. It is our celebration of our salvation by the hand of God. And so I would ask anybody today, we may celebrate as a church, as groups of people, but do you ever celebrate your own personal Passover? If there was a time in your life where everything was turned around, or you saw the light and understood that my life will never ever be the same because now I know to whom I belong, that is my own personal Passover. And so I would encourage you to find a way to celebrate with other believers, to celebrate with yourself what God has done in our lives and in our personal lives. In chapter 12, we have the death of the firstborns, which finally brings the freedom to leave for the people. And so this is when this profound change takes place in their lives. For these people, right at this point, as they are escaping Egypt, they are recognizing there is no going back. Our lives will never, ever be like they were. We're now heading off to a life that God has prepared for us. There is no going back. There is only looking forward. And we can let go of all this behind and celebrate the fact that even though life is going to be really hard and challenging, it will never be what it was before. I have a friend sometime back struggled with profoundly difficult migraine headaches. And bless her heart, for years she struggled with this. And it was so difficult that it really was a constant challenge in her efforts to find a job. Businesses are hesitant to hire people that they know will regularly be unable to work due to a medical issue. These migraine headaches she had were profound, and they tried all kinds of treatments for years, nothing ever really working well. And then at one point, she ends up in middle of the night in an emergency room, and they noted the history of these migraine headaches and the lack of success that other treatments did not provide. And so one of the medical staff says, we need to do a pressure test. And at this point, I'm probably going to get things wrong, but you'll understand the basic idea of what's going on. But it says, let's do a pressure test, I believe, on the cerebral spinal fluid that surrounds the brain and the spinal cord. And they go into her back to test the pressure inside her head. And it is off the charts high. And so they immediately prepared to relieve that pressure, and so they get the pressure off, and she's lying there. They come back in a short bit to see how she's doing, and they're coming in, how are you doing? And she had the biggest smile on her face, because now they know what this issue was. There was pressure building up in and around her brain, and this is what was causing these migraine headaches. The moment they figured this out, everything now changes. And she said, when the relief came, and they all stood around saying, this is where we need to focus our attention. There was so much relief, not just because that pain was now gone for that episode, but everything that she had been through is now gone. And from here on, there will be issues, but it will not be like it was. And I think she will always celebrate that moment, that everything changed for her life, and began to have hope that she would have the kind of life and do the kinds of things that she always wanted to do. And I think that's my hope for all of us as we read these stories, that we would have our own Passover event in our lives, and recognize that the pain, the suffering, the confusion, the darkness that I have lived in for so long is now gone. And as my life progresses from this point on, it's going to be in the light of Jesus. That is my hope for everyone that reads these stories, all of us that share with one another the love of Jesus in our lives. And that's my prayer for everyone that has never heard the story of Jesus. I am keeping everyone in my prayers with the weather. I hope everybody stays warm. Just God bless you all. Let's close with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, help us to understand that you reach out to us so that our lives can be transformed, and that we can get to the point where we can recognize the darkness that we have lived in, to recognize the light that lies before us in the fellowship of Jesus. This is my hope and prayer for everyone that reads these holy words and responds to your call of love. For everything that you do, but most of all for who you are, Jesus, we thank you in your holy name. Amen. God bless you all. I hope to see you soon.